All right, enough stories. First thing you gotta decipher. What you got going? What are you fishing? Is it a highland reservoir? Is it a river system? Is it a dammed lake? Do they pull water? Is it a hydroelectric lake? Is it a tidal fishery? Or are you a pond guy? No shame in that. I've learned so much from bank fishing ponds. Luke can attest to that. Good old country boy from Oklahoma. And he's not even listening. It's fine. Those are the first things you want to decipher first. Where are you fishing? Most importantly. And then the first set of questions you want to ask yourself. Oh, look at me fishing a pond. Is that the same slide? There we go. Sorry. That was a pond 8-pounder, by the way, in a pressured lake in California, or pressured pond in California, in Los Angeles, actually. All right. Ask yourself these questions. What are they going to be doing? We're all scientists in some weird way. We all like to throw experiments, you know. I wonder if we did this, if we would get this type of response. If we did this, what would this do? So there's these little points where you can kind of get a baseline before you dive into your experiments. First thing, water temp. Where's your water temp? You can, I can't tell you how many times I've put my fingers in the water to be like, oh yeah, that's cold. That's sub 50. Or touch it and be like, all right, that's like 60s, you know, and then you're like, oh, that's warm. If you got electronics on your boat, even better. Figure out what your water temp is. Your clarity. Clarity is simple as that. If you can look in and see, you're not sure, get your rod, stick it in the water. Ah, she disappears after my 4th eye. That's roughly 1.5 foot of clarity. Okay, that's another baseline. Seasonal patterns. What are those fish going to be doing in relation to the spawn? Is it freezing out right now? All these bass, they guarantee they got eggs in their belly. If it's sub temperatures like in the 40s, they're probably just trying to hunker down and stay warm. Not saying that they're not feeding, because yes, bass do feed up in the wintertime, but super important to know, what stage are these fish in relation to the spawn? Are they pre? Are they post? Are they during the spawn? Or also, which leads into the next point, what's the forage? Are they craws? Are they bluegill? Shad? Herring? Frogs? What's the main forage in each lake that you guys are fishing? And if you're new to this lake, do some research. Great little thing called the interwebs. Simple little Google search, man. It'll blow your mind. I had no clue that there's gizzard shad in this lake. Well, now you do, just because you took the time to search that. Figure out what lives in your lakes. I found out in Southern California, there's a lake called Lake Pyramid. There's northern strain in there, giant striper. I was so confused. How are these striper getting so big? One day, I noticed there was a 1.5 foot American shad floating on the surface in the water, doing circles because the thing was dying. I'm like, boom, right there. That's the reason why. There was nothing on the internet to tell me that there was American shad in Pyramid Lake. Sometimes you have to use your eyes. Go back to those things, those intuitions, as us as humans, as hunters and gatherers, we all have innate sense. We have senses, we can use them too. Keep your eyes open. What's going on in the water? What's the water cover and the flow? Sorry. We'll dive more into that when we got water flow. We'll talk about rivers, tidal fisheries, and then also dam lakes. And then the last one, Google Maps. If you haven't gotten on Google Maps or Google Earth, you're missing out. Who uses Google Earth? Show of hands. Everyone should have their hand up. Everyone should have their hand up. There's a cool little slide up on that Google Earth thing. There's a little timeline. and you can slide that timeline around. You don't got to go and walk the bank anymore when the water's down and say, oh, I'm going to mark that stump and that stump. All you got to do, just pull the slider. Oh, I went back to 1977, the last time that this shot from the moon got this thing. And look, there's a good stump right there. Mark it. Exactly. So something that everyone should do, which I'm glad that everyone already knows. One thing that I notice a lot when talking to younger anglers and guys that are just getting into the tournament fishing, they scratch their heads because they're realizing, we didn't catch the biggest bass. We didn't catch the biggest bag. How did those guys catch them? What did they do? What did they do that's so different than what we did? How many times do you actually stop and look at the fish that they caught? I don't see a lot of heads moving. A couple guys do. It is so important to look at the fish that are caught. There's so much that can tell you about a bass's condition, that what's going on. How many times have you picked up a bass and looked in its mouth and its crushers are red? Everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, it's eating craws. How many people didn't know that? Okay, there's a couple. When you open a bass's mouth, you will see their teeth will be either bright red, green pumpkin, but more so on a little bit stain of red. You looked at back in their crushers, if they're really digging and rooting down there, it's gonna be red. That bass is feeding up on craws. And this whole time, you're throwing a spinnerbait. Well, bud, you should maybe switch it up to a jig or something on the bottom. Something to kind of keep in mind. Next thing, if you ever notice how sharp a bass's teeth are when they're feeding up on bait versus craws, next time that you catch a bass off of a school of suspending shad or whatever, go ahead, when you lip them, feel how sharp their teeth are. And then feel how sharp a bass's teeth or that aren't sharp when they're meeting up on crawfish. So what happens is these bass are going down, boom, hitting the rocks, moving rocks with their faces. They don't got hands. They got to use their head. They're bashing in to get the craw out. Oh, they see the craw, boom, get it, right back in there. Their teeth are getting mushed down. Those things are all beat up. You know when they're keyed in on fin bait is when their teeth are sharp. They're eating bluegill, they're eating shad.